Alright, welcome to part 2. We are going to finish the pear. So this is a combination of everything you learned in the previous video. So as you look at the letters, obviously follow the alphabet, and you always click your anchor point in these hollow squares. So if you come to A and you click in the square and you drag towards the red, and you let go, then it's going to be curved but not enough. So you come to B and click and drag once again towards the red. Now you should match the guides fairly well, but I'm more interested in you matching the pear than the guides perfectly. So for example, if I match my guide, it's not quite shaped right. So just go ahead and go with it as it is. Now if I let go, it's curved the wrong direction. So this is where those little yellow circles come in mind. You have to hold down Alt, click and drag to yellow. Then you come to C and you click and drag to the red. Now this is all going to be facing the wrong direction, and I already know that. So since I know that, before I even let go, I'm just going to hold down Alt and just go over here to the yellow. And that leaves it so it's curved in the correct direction. So then you come to D, same thing, click, hold, and drag towards red. Try to just get it matching up as well as you can. Obviously, I didn't click perfectly in all the same places, but I can, as long as you get it close, you're good. Oops, I let go. So hold down Alt, come to the handle, drag it to that yellow spot, and that reverses the curve. Now from here, it's pretty easy. Let's come to E, click and drag so that it matches the shape. Come to F, click and drag. Come to G. Once again, click and drag. H. Remember, I'm more interested in you matching the line than perfecting like the guides. So even though it's not quite where the guides are, that looks better. So come to I and click and drag. And even though I'm not on the guides perfectly, it's still close. If you're nowhere near the guides, you've probably done something really wrong. Okay, then come to A, and you should just be able to come right back to your very first anchor point. You'll see that circle, meaning it's connecting. Click once, and there you go. So that's the pear. Now let's go ahead and do the leaf. So you come to A, and you click and you drag. And I can't get it perfect, so I'll just get it close. Come to B, click and drag. Come to C and click and drag. Now you could come to here and click and drag and you could get it close, but it doesn't quite work right. So what I like to do is I actually come to right before the line, and then you just click and drag. And you'll notice that it's not perfect. And I'll press Escape. And I can use this to reposition it and reshape it so it matches the leaf a little better. Once again, I'm not getting it perfect, and that is okay. But I can always edit handles and make things change their shape a little. And of course you can change the location. It's not perfect, but as long as you get it similar to a leaf shape, that's all that matters. Now, one of the reasons I did it this way is because if you click and drag on these two handles right here, they didn't connect. I did that on purpose. If I come up to Object, go to Path, choose Join, now they're connected. That doesn't work for two lines that you created completely separate. But if you've created a line and then you just didn't quite connect it correctly, you can join the ends. Okay, now let's go do the stem, and we're almost done. The stem is pretty simple. Just click and drag. This one, we need to change the direction of the curve, so I'm going to hold Alt, come down here. That makes it so it's facing this way. And if I click and drag, I can pretty much make it match the guides perfectly. And then if you come back up to the original and then just drag that towards the red one more time, you can get it to match up. Okay, now I need to put it together, and this is where you have to make sure you check the rubric, because I tell you you need an arrow, which I'll show you how to draw, and you need 2 gradients. At least one of them is a radial gradient. So if you just take your black selection tool and select your pear, you can come and just assign a radial gradient to it, but then I want to add my own colors. So what you can do is if you come here, Swatch Libraries, come down, they've got this one called Foods, and there's one called Fruit. And you could just choose colors one by one, but if you specifically see one, this one's even called Pear. If you double click on the folder, it becomes an availability here in your Swatches library. So now if I come to my gradient tool, and you can close out of this, if you double click on the square, you've got these colors. If it happened to pop up here, you just have to click to this, and I can assign green. And then I can go to this next one, double click on it, and I'll give it, like the little sun spot for my pear. And its radial is the type. Now if you don't like the way that looks, you can take the gradient tool, and now I can click and drag, and that will adjust my gradient. So depending on how big you drag it is going to make it so there's more orange. Or if you draw it really small, it makes it small. I can drag it out here so that there's only a tiny bit of the orange showing. You just have to make sure that there's enough of this showing that I can tell you did it. So just be careful not to make it too subtle. Then I can go ahead and come over to the leaf and the stem. And now I just apply a color. Now I do have 2 gradients as the requirement, and I will just switch this up to some greens. Maybe make it linear instead. And that works for me. You can also get rid of the stroke if you want, because I think the pear looks a little better if it doesn't have a black line around it. All right, the last part is the arrow. So if you take the pen tool, and if you need to, you can look at the examples so you kind of get an idea of what you're trying to create. If you take your pen tool and just click once, and the second one you drag so that it creates a little kind of dimple effect. And then if you don't see the colors up here, even though it's selected, you just have to click on it again. No fill. And then I want it to have a color that I can see. You see, that's really subtle, so maybe I'll just make my stroke just a tiny bit thicker. Oops. So now I can see that. So then I take my pen tool, and I'm going to zoom in, and I'll just come right here. And then escape, simple straight line, which I will then change to a more arrow color. If you hold down Alt, you can just copy the one you just drew. Whoops. And if I just move it until it looks like it is coming out the other side. Okay, that looks good. Now I can take the pen tool and draw like an arrowhead. If I select this, I can fill it. And honestly, if you wanted to be fancy, there's even one called metal. Though actually metal's not as good. It's the one that's called, oh, there's gradients, metals. There we go. That one works really well. So you can apply like that, or you can switch it up. You can experiment with some, make them different. And then of course you can give it a stroke, or you can say no stroke. It's up to you. And then I need to rotate it because it doesn't quite look right. So there I've got an arrowhead. And then the last thing is I take my pen tool Oops, mine's being frozen. Okay, now the last part is to do like the little feathers. So I'll just go ahead and start somewhere. Just decide how angled you want them to be. Click here. Trying to match them up so they're the same length. And I'll just press escape. Select the line. I don't want it to have a fill. And then it just kind of depends on what color you want it. Do you want it to be kind of colored feathers, or you just want them to be regular? It's up to you. Could increase the stroke a little bit. And then if I just hold Alt, I can just copy a couple of them. And there you go. Now you're done. So you just need to make sure to go File, Export, Export As. Make sure to export it as a JPEG. Using artboards shouldn't be necessary because nothing is outside of the page. But just remember, if something ever is outside the page that you don't want, you check Use Artboards. And then you go ahead and click Export. And then, of course, don't forget to submit it here in the Pen Tool Pear assignment. And you're done.